You're listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.
This episode,
we're caught in a cycle in FAB Facts.
We're getting lost in the desert in the Randomiser.
And Thunderbirds Are Go with Alan Tracy, a.k.a. Joe Jameson.
He's Gordon 2. That's all coming up in Pod 251.
Well, who's Gordon 3 of the Gerry Anderson podcast?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's get started. Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The Gerry Anderson podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
Well, what a strange displeasure not to be seeing you this week.
I know, it's odd, isn't it? Where are the cameras? I don't know where I should be looking.
Well, we were supposed to not be looking at the cameras last week, weren't we?
Oh, that's why I always go wrong, yes.
So yes, Podsterons, if you're listening to this and thinking, what are they talking about? Well, that's the same as you think every week when we start talking.
Yes.
I'm Jamie Anderson, he's Richard James, and this week we're not yet joined by Chris Dale.
No, that's right. No, he'll be along a little later, won't he?
Yeah, he will be with his Randomiser, because he is the Randomiser. But this is the Back to Normal Gerry Anderson podcast. Business as usual, very much as usual for 251, because now we've gone past 250. I mean,
Same old.
Yeah, same old nonsense, really. Same old gubbins, as you have said for the previous 250 episodes, approximately.
That's right, yeah. But wasn't it fun to do a videoed version of the podcast?
Wasn't it fun? Podsterons, can I let you in on a little secret?
Oh.
I can see they're nodding. Before recording, we were served a small tray of beverages.
We were, weren't we?
We were served by Chris, the GM at the Moxie in Slough, the Thunderbirds Hotel, as we keep calling it, a lovely tray of Tracy Island iced teas.
Yes, and didn't I do well out of that deal?
Well, yes, Richard ended up with 2. So
I did.
If you thought, he's extra feisty and jolly this recording, maybe that was why.
Yeah, that might have helped. Yeah, they did go down rather nicely.
They were really delicious, I just got a little shiver thinking about how delicious they were.
I know.
Anyway, I'm afraid I'm just on the coffee for this one, and you're on the toast and tea, are you, or something?
Yes, I am, that's right. Yes, I have. Just maybe some little toast and Marmite, actually.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Okay, well, fueled by toast with Marmite, do you want to tell the Podsterons everything that they can expect, and maybe throw in a couple of made-up things that they can't expect during this episode of the Gerry Anderson podcast? Yes, do it.
Okay, all right. Okay, so coming up in this week's edition of the Gerry Anderson podcast, we have FAB Facts any moment now.
Oh, what a surprise.
That's where Jamie flicks through a book of FAB Facts. I shout FAB at a random point, and he then reads the fact associated with my FAB for your delight and pleasure.
Yes.
Right, then we've got the Gerry Anderson news, because, of course, there's always something new happening in the worlds of Gerry Anderson. And then we have Guess the Elephant's Height, the popular item that we've been running for the last 3 weeks, whereby I will bring in a member of the placoderm species, and you have to guess, from my description, how high it is.
Yes.
It's not Gerry Anderson related, but it's just something we like to do.
Absolutely. As Podsterons have previously noticed, the kind of level of vibration as you walk them in is a really good indicator of height. So do you remember that?
That's right. And then we've got, is it part 1 of a multi-part interview with Joe Jameson from Thunderbirds Are Go?
Not Thunderbirds Are Go, from the Thunderbirds audiobooks.
Yes, sorry, yes.
But it is part 1 of 2. No, just carry on, it's fine.
Yes, just carry on, it's fine. And then we've got lovely Podsterons who've been getting in touch at podcast@gerryanderson.com, and on our Facebook group, and on Twitter, and I should be reading out some of their comments. But then, of course, before we hit the randomizer at the very end of the podcast, we must remember, of course, that it's our Gerry Panderson quiz, where I give you various items of kitchen paraphernalia that Gerry may or may not have used in his career.
Panderson, right, I get it.
And you have to guess what pans he might have used to prepare certain dishes. So all that to look forward to in this week's splendid edition of of the Gerry Anderson podcast.
Amazing. I love those two made-up editions. I mean, who would ever believe that we'd have an interview or Fab Facts?
I know, that's just silly, isn't it?
Yeah, ridiculous. Panderson. See, I thought, he's going for animal-themed here, and then you went for the Kitchenalia route. So
Kitchenalia. Yeah.
Quite
that's
something.
Right. And you know, the more I think about it, that'd be quite a good item, wouldn't it?
Really? Okay. Do you know what? While you were thinking of those and giving you a lovely intro, I thought, wouldn't it actually be fun if we had a Back to the Future segment? Bear with me on this.
Right. Yes, go on.
Where we...
Marty? Sorry.
No, not like that at all. No, I was thinking it's basically we take a phrase from an Anderson show, a clip, and we play it in reverse.
Oh.
And you have to guess the character, etc., without cheating, obviously, and digitally reversing it yourself.
Yeah.
Would that be fun? Is that a thing we could do,
I think you might just have stumbled across something.
It's very much a stumble in the dark, but
okay.
Yeah, maybe for 252...
Maybe.
And we want a better segment title than Back to the Future. That was just what I was thinking.
No, I like that, surely.
It is
but it's
kind
not very
of
Anderson, but it's good.
The future that was, the etc. backwards.
Yeah.
Reverse the polarity. I mean, I'm sure we can find something, can't we?
Yes. Oh, I like that.
Okay, good. Well,
Good.
there you go.
Isn't it amazing? You see, 251 pods in and we're still thinking up new gubbins.
Yes, so fresh. Guess the Elephant's Height, Gerry Panderson section, and a clip played in reverse. We are the masters of creativity.
Hey, it's what they're here for.
On which note,
yes,
shall we head into Fab Facts?
Oh, I think we ought to.
Good, then here's this week's Fab Facts.
You're not going to do it backwards, are you?
Now, time for this week's Fab Facts.
Yes, indeed, it's Fab Facts, the favourite section of Richard N. James. He's a well-known huge fan. But I tell you what, after last week's Fab Fact, I would actually forgive you for, being pre-disappointed with this one because, Ben, I love the effort that you went to, the creative effort, producer Ben, of last week's Fab Fact, where I'd forgotten the book, so hands up, my own fault.
Yes, was your fault.
But it was,
yeah.
I don't think it was fab, and barely a fact.
It's barely a fact. But, things can only get better, can't they?
Well, let's hope so. But in a return to form, I will once again be flicking through the pages of my tome of Fab Facts. Richard will be crying fab at some random point. That will stop me flicking, and hopefully will happen upon a Fab Fact, which will, in fact, this week be both fab and, well, hopefully at least a fact.
That'd be nice.
Richard James, are you primed with your fab?
Born primed.
Primed. Brilliant. Okay, well, here we go with the flicking of the Tome of Fab Facts.
Fab!
Didn't get very far through there.
Well, took you by surprise.
You so often do.
I do.
Well, Richard James, this week's Fab Fact, I think, will appeal to lots of those fans of models and vehicles out there because it's all about model making.
Ah.
So here we go. Did you know that pieces from model kits were used to add details to various miniatures on Gerry Anderson productions?
I didn't know that specifically, but I could imagine that would be the case.
Okay, well, these pieces provide so much detail and fascination visually, are sometimes called greeblies.
Are they?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Right.
There we go. So that's the end of this week's
what?
Kit
Hey, what?
Fact.
But, okay,
no,
wait.
it's not really. There's a bit more, don't worry. I couldn't possibly be that short. So there's actually a little bit more to it. Space 1999, which is, as you know, Dad's penultimate live-action sci-fi show, took place, of course, on the moon.
It did.
As you know. Often tank, aircraft, ship and car kits were cannibalised, but in this case, there were also many pieces used from the miniature versions of rockets that took humanity to the moon.
I see.
Very fittingly, perhaps.
Yes.
These included the Airfix Saturn V kit.
I had that.
Did you?
I had it and I built it.
Amazing.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
fine.
Mm-hmm.
The Revell Gemini kit in 1/24th scale.
Mm-hmm.
The Revell Apollo Saturn V rocket in 1/96th scale. The Monogram Apollo Saturn kit in 144th scale.
Gosh, right.
And many others. Now, there are a lot of detailed discussions online about these kits.
I bet.
Particularly on the Space 1999 Props and Ships Facebook group. So if you wish to join in there, then go and search for it.
Ah.
So this means that while we were watching fictional events unfold on the moon, the spaceships on screen were made from miniature versions of real-life spaceships.
Now I like that.
That's rather nice, isn't it?
It is, yeah,
it's
that's
rather
neat.
a sort of fractal Inception sort of style. Well, and also, as we know, of course, scientists currently working at places like NASA and ESA and SpaceX were, of course, inspired by Space 1999, just as the filmmakers were inspired by real-life space programs. And so the cycle of inspiration continues.
Love it.
Isn't that nice?
That's good. I like that.
Yeah, it's the Ouroboros snake thing, isn't it? Eating its own tail.
Oh, right.
Or
Okay.
something. I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah, probably
I
not
feel
that, but maybe that. Anyway, so Podsterons, what other examples of inspirational cycles can you think of? And I don't mean Timmy Mallet riding a bike around the country.
Pretty inspirational, though, has to be
very
said.
inspirational. You know, have you spotted either bits of kits that you can identify on screen, or can you think of some other ways in which the worlds of Anderson have inspired other bits of the world of Anderson which have inspired real life, which then go on to inspire the worlds of Anderson, so the cycle continues? Do let us know. Email us, podcast@gerryanderson.com, or if you're feeling more visual, then do post on the Gerry Anderson Facebook group, the Podsterons Facebook group, I should say, or tweet us and use the hashtag Gerry Anderson Podcast with images, perhaps, of the bits of kit that you spotted on models and the associated model kits they came from.
Wow.
How's that?
Nice. Well, you covered all bases there.
I think I did, actually.
In fact, I'd even go so far as to say you covered all moon bases there.
Oh, well, that entire FAB Fact was worth it just for that
Wasn't
dad
it?
joke.
Wasn't
it? So, on that hilarious paternal bombshell, paternal hilarity bombshell? Perhaps that's what I mean.
Okay.
Yes, something like that. That's the end of this week's
Kit Fact!
No, I already prompted
What?
you with Kit Fact earlier on. And you
That's
said
why I didn't do
Gravely.
it. I didn't want to do what you had said earlier.
Isn't that funny that you don't want to do what I tell you? Yeah.
Yeah, funny that, isn't it?
Okay.
Anyway, talking of doing what we tell you,
yes.
if you're listening to us on your podcast app of choice, then, you can leave us a review. I'm just
Absolutely.
saying.
They can
you
also
should.
leave us a rating.
Or a rating.
That's the
Tell
favourite.
the world what you think of the Gerry Anderson podcast.
Well,
you can also copy
within
and paste.
reason.
Within reason.
Yeah.
Copy and paste the link to all your socials as well and let people know that you're listening. And perhaps they might want to join us too. Now, I'm going to head straight on over to our email postbag because it's been a bumper crop this week. I'm
we love
delighted
those.
to say we do. This one here is from Duncan Moss. He emailed us at podcast@gerryanderson.com to say, "Hi, Jamie, Richard and Chris.
Hello.
I was delighted to hear that the Mad Comic has done a skit on Thunderbirds and Space 1999. Please, could it be looked into to have a reprint done, even if it's a part of a larger compilation?" Do you know that? Heard of that?
I know, because the whole mad thing from a couple of weeks ago has only recently come into my consciousness. So, but
okay.
I bet there's rights issues around that, but you never know.
Almost certainly, but he goes on anyway. "I just wanted to share a fan's experience. In the spring of 1981, early on a Saturday morning, I heard from my friend Dominic Masters that Thunderbirds was back on TV in our area London weekend after an absence of nearly 5 years. It was showing at 11 o'clock, and at the time, it was about 10:25. Oh, okay. But now, while this was great news, there was a minor problem. At 11, I had a Bible study in Claygate with my friend Fenella, brackets Fen. I set off from Surbiton on my trusty purple chopper bicycle, pedalling as fast as I could through Hinchley Wood into Claygate and to her house in Gordon Road. Gasping for breath, I told Fen and her mother Beryl that Thunderbirds was back on TV and could we watch it? Neither has ever seen it, although I had told Fen about the series some months before. Have you ever seen it, Mrs. Campion? I enthusiastically asked. I've heard of it, Mrs. Campion replied. But it's the greatest television programme ever made, I exclaimed. So, Fen and I sat down to watch it in black and white, just like the first fans, and the episode was, of course, Trapped in the Sky, which I don't think I'd ever seen the whole way through.
Oh.
Now, while I was thrilling to it, says Duncan, I asked Fen what she thought of the show. What's the point of it, she asked.
Oh, Fen.
It's set in the 21st century, I replied.
Yes, Fen.
So what, she said.
Why?
I began to get a bit worried. She was clearly not enjoying it. Once the rescue takes place, she will like it, I thought. Sadly, the spectacular Fire Flash rescue left her cold, and when the episode ended, there was no time for the Bible study, just enough for some prayers. I thanked the Lord for great television shows, and she thanked him for entertainment that we could get at the press of a button. Now, A short time later, in a discussion at a gathering of our youth group Open Circle at Fenn's house, I mentioned light-heartedly that I had shown Thunderbirds to Fenn, and she was not impressed, which started a backlash. I was told by some people that I'd been very rude, and it was concluded that the show was for 4-year-olds and that I needed to grow up. Fenn herself was displeased with me. At 17, being thought of as immature, especially by someone you hold in high regard, is not easy to deal with. Now, says Duncan, I have recently been diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactive disorder, which I've had all my life, which is why I have found life a little bit perplexing, and have found creativity of myself and others so important. In the early 1980s, liking Gerry's shows was not easy, as fans found themselves taking a lot of stick from certain quarters. At my youth group, there were some Thunderbirds fans, and there was a bit of friction between fans and non-fans, the only way that teenagers do. By the late 1980s, it was very trendy to like 60s TV. Through the years, as fans have got together through various fan outlets, I've made a lot of friends and had the pleasure of meeting Gerry and the members of his crew and actors from his shows, and have acquired several autographs. The Lord has been very good to me on the fan front, and I'm sure was watching with us on that spring Saturday morning. Previously, Fenn was in one of my movies, says Duncan, Revenge of the Zombie. When it was my birthday, she brought me a present, so I knew that we were friends again. Beryl, her mother, was very kind to me when I was very upset and troubled over something, and I have never forgotten what she did for me. And just before she died in the late 1990s, I was able to write to her and thank her for what she had done for me. The lovely thing is that several years later, Fenn became a Thunderbirds fan while watching one of the BBC reruns with her husband and children. I've not seen her for nearly 40 years, but I hope to meet her and her family someday. God bless Fenn, the fan, and her family. And that's a lovely story from Duncan Moss. Thanks for that, Duncan.
Gosh. Thanks, Duncan. Yeah, well, I'm glad, he took Fenn 40-odd years to see the light.
Yeah, that's right. But actually, I suspect there's a lot of people out there who recognise that journey through fandom that perhaps has become a little bit easier of late with social media and being more easily able to find like-minded people rather than feeling alone. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I think we can all recognise that a little bit. So thank you for that, Duncan. What a lovely heartfelt email.
Yeah, thanks, Duncan. Thanks for sharing. We do love those personal stories as well, which we're always happy to share. If you are Podsterons, so do drop us a note. Podcast at gerryanderson.com.
Douglas Gonnelly has got in touch to say, Gentlemen, I just want to take a moment to thank you for your fantastic podcast and to share with you this brief moment in time. Now, I have to be at my job quite early in the morning, so I get out of bed around 4:30 a.m. to begin my morning routine. Douglas goes on, your podcast is often playing while I'm getting ready, and because it's so early in the morning and I live in a smallish house, I try to keep quiet and to not wake my wife and children who have no interest in being up at such an ungodly hour. But when Richard was talking about walking downstairs and expecting because I thought I was the only person that has done this. Well, says Douglas, my outburst of laughter echoed through the until then silent house and awoke my wife and at least one of the children.
Oh dear.
As angry as they were, it made my day much more pleasant, having started it off with such a guffaw. Anywho, says Douglas, thanks for making my mornings much more tolerable with your wonderful content. Best regards from Douglas Gonnelly.
Oh, thanks, Douglas. We absolutely love that, but also I'm very sorry for Richard's behaviour.
Yes, I can only apologise. I'd forgotten I'd made that comment a few weeks ago, but I'm glad to see that it raised a chortle.
Yeah.
I'm not sure your wife was that impressed.
No,
obviously.
Richard James-induced guffaws are often the downfall of many a human being.
That's true. Many a marriage, it has to be said. And finally for now, Paul Hyder from China has got in touch. Now, do you remember, Jamie, you tasked our Podsterons to get in touch to see if they could name various Anderson series that you might expect to find made from fields of grain or wheat or...
Yes, one of these stupid things that I say, and then you always say, well, no one's going to do that, and then thankfully someone will often do it, and it turns out that in this case, Paul Hyder has obliged.
Here we go. So these are top Anderson vehicles to be made with fields of grain.
Brilliant.
Okay. Ready for these?
Yeah, standing by.
Yeah, so he says, I'd like to see Stingray.
Oof. Yep, okay.
A Shadow's Interceptor. A Bar-legal Transport. And wheat for it, he says. Lady Penelope's Rolls Royce.
Called
Called KB1. All the best, Paul Hyder from China.
Oh, okay. Well, this is making me think twice about asking for these things in future.
You and your big mouth.
Yes, has been said.
Well, I enjoyed that very much. So that's all for now. But do keep your emails coming in to podcast@gerryanderson.com because I love reading them out, and I shall do just that next time.
Okay, well, fantastic.
Careful what you wish for.
Yeah, I'm being very careful now. Well, I mean, what I'm very much looking forward to after the Gerry Anderson news, which is coming up very shortly, is the Guess the Height of the Elephant section, which, of course, I think all of our podcast listeners have been looking forward to this week after the last 3 weeks of fantastic work by you, Richard.
Oh, well.
Yes, okay, fine. Well, let's see what happens after the Gerry Anderson news, which is coming up now because it's time for the Gerry Anderson news. Yes, as ever, as you'd expect, it's the Gerry Anderson news, of course. And we all did that last week. We did, didn't we?
Yeah, all three of us.
Yeah, and then we all sang at the end. That was rather lovely.
I know. Yeah, wasn't it? Well, you say lovely.
I mean, that was...
I'm not sure the cats in the local area would agree.
Well, some of them might have done. They've joined in with the chorus, didn't they? So, yes. Anyway, no, it's the Gerry Anderson news, and I've got some news for you, would you believe?
Oh, that's a relief.
Well, let's start the Gerry Anderson news with some Joe 90 news, which... After our recent discussion, shall we describe it as, with Jack Knoll?
Oh, yes.
I've ever so slightly warmed to Joe.
You have, haven't you?
Ever so slightly. I'm not ordering one of these books myself, but the Joe 90 Technical Operations Manual, the standard edition, is available to pre-order now for a few more days at its reduced pre-order price of £27.99. On Friday evening this week, it will go up to $29.99, where it shall remain for the foreseeable future. So if you want to save yourself a couple of quid, then pre-order it now. If you want the special edition, well, I'm afraid you missed it. It sold out in the first couple of hours, and so that is that. Yeah, I hope you got it. If you were aiming to grab it, it'll be a rather lovely thing. But the book is lovely regardless. So if you're looking to get more into the worlds of the technical side of Super Mario Nation, from an in-universe point of view, then that is the book for you. We are just a few days away, well, 10 days away probably, from Gerry Anderson Day.
Oh, yes,
Which is rather exciting, isn't it? The 14th of April, Dad's birthday, and we'll be celebrating all things Anderson. There'll be some interesting bits and pieces for the day. We'll be giving away some freebie things in the run-up to it, so do stay tuned to gerryanderson.com. And one thing in particular that's happening for around Gerry Anderson Day is something which Richard James is excited about, aren't you? But you can't say what it is yet. But last time I mentioned this, you weren't sure what it was that I was talking about.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I know. I thought about it, and I know now. Yes,
I was
but
really hoping you'd play along.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not allowed to say anything. You said.
Yeah, no, you're not allowed to say anything. But at least you can. No, but at least you can, play along and show some enthusiasm this time, rather than going, what? Sorry.
All right, you put me on the spot. That's
I know,
all.
but I thought you knew. Anyway, it's exciting. I think it's going to be great.
Yes,
and it's going to surprise some people. I suspect.
It really will.
Yeah.
Yes, I was surprised.
Yes,
sure.
well, you were even after you knew, and then I had to remind you. Goodness me. Right, so from Podcast Fool to April Fools. Obviously, April Fool has just been and gone. So you may have seen some of our little hilarious postings, Podsterons. So I really want to know from you, enjoyed or annoyed? Which one was it for you? From our faux Gerry Anderson spin-off show teasers to the announcement of Elon Musk's Fireball XL5 livery for his latest SpaceX rocket.
That was an April Fool?
I'm afraid it was.
Oh.
Well, I don't think it's likely that SpaceX is going to rename themselves to Space XL5.
No, fair enough.
But there we go. And of course, AC's TV21 story where Thunderbirds encountered something rather sticky, shall we say?
Yes.
Yes. So, enjoyed or annoyed? We'd love to know. Do tweet us with the hashtag Gerry Anderson Podcast and just say enjoyed or annoyed. And maybe you enjoyed some and were annoyed by others, or vice versa. We'd love to know. It's just a bit of fun, really, but, we don't want to annoy you too much.
Not that much, no.
Believe it or not.
Yes, no more than usual,
Despite
anyway.
listening to this podcast, so you might believe the opposite. Moving on. From Space XL5 to Fireball XL5, you can now download Cloud of a Billion Lights from bigfinish.com, and we're reliably informed by their marketing team that Stingray is to follow very, very soon with Terra
great.
Fake. These were previously only available as CD from the network special editions of the Blu-ray, but now the sort of exclusive period for that has passed, and you can download them instead. So that's very exciting, isn't it? If you don't have a CD player, or you didn't get those Blu-ray sets, or just only like digital, then that's the way for you to do it. Bigfinish.com. Just search for XL5 or Stingray. Now, did you enjoy, Podsterons, our live recorded video version of Pod 250? Yay or nay? Not
sorry.
you.
Oh, sorry.
You enjoyed it because you had Tracy Island iced teas. Plural.
Yes, I
Didn't you?
Maybe.
But Podsterons, we want to know, did you enjoy those? Would you like to see more? Does it help seeing us doing these things, or does it detract, maybe? Maybe you thought, I'd rather not look at them, which would be totally fine.
Yes.
Did you play the YouTube video with your eyes closed, or even open? We would love to know your thoughts. Do post your thoughts in the Gerry Anderson Podcast Listeners Facebook group, or on Twitter, or email us podcast@gerryanderson.com. And finally...
Crikey! Go on.
If you are a Bond fan...
Yes.
I recently had a lovely chat with the folks at the Spy Hards podcast.
Splendid.
Very nice. And on that, I revealed exclusively some details about the Moonraker treatment as written by Dad and Tony Barwick back around 1969-1970. Stuff that's never been talked about before. So it may well be worth you listening to the Spy Hards podcast when that comes out. I think in the next week or so, it may be even this week. We'll be retweeting and posting about it furiously, but do go and give them a listen. That would be rather marvellous. That's it. I'm
All
done.
right, that's it, is it? All right, fine. Good.
Yeah, sorry, I
Well
came
done.
to a hard stop there.
You did rather, yes.
Yeah, I don't know why. I just ran out of steam. But that is the end of this week's Gerry Anderson News.
That was the news. Gerry Anderson news. What was that? A really, really poor Sean Connery?
I'm not really sure what happened there, but it was a nice attempt.
Yes. Well, if you'd like some more, perhaps I could give you Roger Moore.
Oh, nice!
That's not bad. You see, not bad.
You keep cracking these out, don't you?
Well, yeah. You know. I'm never one to hide a light under my bushel.
But quite nice. I wish I could do one.
Right, George Lazenby?
No, I can't. No, not specifically a Bond character. I don't think I can do any voices.
Just any voices. Oh,
No.
that's disappointing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, you could sit with your Robert the Robot, perhaps.
Yeah, but that's a bit monotonous, isn't it?
Is it?
No different from usual before you say it. Anyway, let's move on. Is it time to measure the elephant?
No, well, I'm saving that for in just a moment.
Okay, brilliant.
I'd forgotten about that.
I hadn't.
Now, the very antithesis of mundane and boring and monotonous, of course, is our Facebook group.
Oh, a nice save there.
Our wonderful Podsterons have been posting all of their pictures of their cosplay and their models and so on. Lynn McKinnon, for example, posted a picture of the UFO comic anthology saying, "A birthday gift this week, worth waiting for from my husband and daughters, and very unexpected. I'm a really happy lady and don't normally do a lot for my birthday. I now have the best husband in the world as a present, and he plans the most thoughtful surprises with his stepdaughter." Isn't that lovely?
That is
Great.
lovely.
Well, happy birthday to you, Lynn, for a couple of weeks ago. Martin Smith says, as an avid reader of Countdown and TV Action, I remembered all of the strips in the UFO comic anthology and was so pleased to see them again in these book volumes. As a child growing up into my teens, the thought never occurred to me to keep the original comics. How I wish I had. Well...
That's just the way of it, though, isn't it? I mean, that kind of gives it that extra pull of nostalgia.
Yes.
So maybe you derive more joy from not having them for a period and then recapturing them. I think that's part of the fun, isn't it?
Yes, maybe. You could be right. Lou Dean has been at MegaCon Birmingham all weekend. She was Captain Black on the Saturday and Atlanta on the Sunday.
What a great combo.
That's right. So we, says Lou, me and my friend, had a little photo shoot, and I'm so happy with this cosplay, I can't wait for the next one. And she posted some pictures of her cosplay on the Facebook group. Button Moon Hannah says, I think I must be a very odd Anderson fan, but I just can't understand why everyone thinks all the Super Mario Nation child characters are annoying. I have absolutely no issues with them, and I never had, brackets, except for Torchy.
Oh, okay. There's always an exception,
Yes,
isn't there?
she goes on, no matter how much everyone will try to explain to me, or whatever Chris Dale says on his randomiser, I still don't get it. As a matter of fact, it actually annoys me more whenever I hear anyone criticising about the child characters. But there is one character I do hate, and everyone else seems to love. Have a guess who it is, Jamie.
Is it me?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
That's a relief.
No, it's Oink, says Hannah. I think he's annoying, useless, he doesn't do anything, and I can't stand the noises he makes. If they had made him more useful, then I would have liked him more.
Oink. Yeah, he was really annoying, wasn't he?
Yes.
And a bit frightening looking, I think.
Oh, I think so, absolutely, yeah.
Terrifying.
I'm so glad, says Hannah, that the production team decided to get rid of him. I wish they did it a bit sooner, like shortly after his first appearance.
Or like before production, yeah.
I don't like hurting anyone's feelings, but I was told that this group is where we could share our thoughts and interests together as a way of getting to know everyone. This is just how I feel. Well, absolutely fair enough, Hannah. Yeah.
Completely
That's
justified.
Quite right. Because Tom Hodden, I think, sums it up very well. He then replies saying, well, the Anderson verse is like a big menu. Not everybody will like every dish, but you should never think you're wrong for liking something else on the menu.
Absolutely right.
Isn't that right?
What a perfect analysis.
Yes, isn't it? Exactly. You don't have to like everything. You just pick your favourites.
I cannot wait now for the Joe 19 Oink spin-off show.
It's going to happen, isn't it? And finally, now this is interesting. Rob Williams alerted us to a radio feature from ABC Radio in Adelaide, where the host, interviewed a chap called Dave Bevan, who has some Gerry Anderson props in his own home. Would you like to hear it?
Oh, I would love to.
Have a listen to this.
ABC.
Kelly, what's the nerdiest thing you've done?
Well, I've done a lot of things. Got a TV memorabilia collection myself that I started back in 1976. It includes a lot of stuff from Thunderbirds and Space 1999 and UFO. I've got two of the original production puppets from Thunderbirds itself.
These aren't reproduction toys.
I've got a lot of the toys and the merchandise from the shows, but these are actually production puppets, the actual supermarionation puppets.
Which characters have you got from the Thunderbirds that were actually used in the TV show?
I've got Brains and Tintin, the girl.
You're kidding. You own Brains from the Thunderbirds?
Mm-hmm. Yes. He's been living in retirement here since 1989.
They're a little creepy, aren't they, when they're just sitting there?
When they're not, sort of got any form of life into them, then they're a little bit like, they were working models. They were actually used during the filming. They were electronics. They've still got all their internal electronics as well, so they're quite special.
I would love to see your collection, Kelly.
It's pretty big. I've had it included in a merchandise guide that was published quite a few years ago, so it's been pretty big. We've been in the house for 20 plus years. I actually have a room which is dedicated to it all completely, so there are things like record 8mm films and scripts, and I've even got a Space 1999 spacesuit as well. So.
One you can climb into?
No, way larger than me, probably suitable for someone around about 6'5". So I think it was actually for a stuntman.
Do you ever get into your Space 1999 spacesuit and sit there and look at your Brains Thunderbird marionette?
No. When I get asked to have them on display at exhibitions or conventions, or we trot them out and tote them around, they're living the quiet life at the moment, so...
Kelly?
So it's pretty much me just trying to make sense of the collection now that I'm 59 and the kids are starting to get a little bit restless and independent. So I'm looking at the future of this collection. And
No, don't let your kids get to it. We're getting texts from people. One says, wow, Kelly is the new Brains from the Thunderbirds. Reinhardt says, I'm now 3 degrees separation from Brains. Can't believe it. Somebody says they have Dave envy. I am envious. I think this is a serious collection.
Oh, Dave.
There, get that.
Well, does anyone... I'll tell you what. Do any of our Podsterons in Australia know Dave Berron? Can you... Dave Bevan?
Yeah.
If you know Dave Berron, then don't write in. If you know Dave Bevan, and you can verify the authenticity and the provenance of these items, we'd love to hear more. Or, Dave, if you're listening right now, drop us a note.
Get in touch. Absolutely.
We'd love to hear about that directly. Thanks so much for sharing, everyone.
What I find odd, of course, is that the interviewer sort of, jokingly says, what, I don't expect you to sit around in your Space 1999 spacesuit looking at your Brains puppet. Well, Yeah, I mean, that's what I'd do. What's so
Obviously.
weird about that? Of course you would.
Yeah. I mean, it makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, but no, as Dave says, he apparently can't get into the suit because I think it's a little small for him. So it'd be
Oh,
interesting
shame.
to know. He suspects, as he said, that it was used for a stunt person during the show.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to know, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'm sure we can find out more. So let's see.
Let's have a search. There we go. All for now. But as I often say, if you're online, if you're on Facebook, do search for the official Podsterons podcast listeners group and answer a couple of questions. We'll let you in. Join in the fun. Friendliest place on the internet. All like-minded individuals who are just really, they care most about being welcoming and letting people just have a nice time.
Ah, isn't that so lovely?
Yes, so important.
I really like that. And also, as we say, one place where you can go and say, do you know what, I've tried this and I really don't like it.
Yeah, and you won't get pounced on.
Absolutely. People will say, yeah,
Yes.
me too. Or, oh, I
Yes.
thought that too, but I really like it now. Or I loved it from the beginning. And it's a great kind of forum for sharing passions or dispassions without
right.
being, told off for it, really.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which is so nice. It's a real testament to the Podsteron. So well done, you Podsteron, for being so nice. Now, is that the sound of a small or large elephant I can hear coming from afar?
Yes, it is. Are you ready to play How High Is My Elephant? Oh, I wish we had a jingle prepared for that.
Yes. Yeah, what a shame that we don't. Actually, without the jingle, maybe we shouldn't go ahead with this week's one. So.
Oh, okay. All right. No, Jeff, put it back in the kennel. Yeah. Just stuff it in there. It's fine.
I thought Jeff was the name of the elephant.
No, Jeff's his keeper.
Oh, of course. Sorry. Makes perfect sense. Okay, so maybe next week for the elephant.
Sure.
But don't worry, we have still got the Gerry Panderson section coming up later on.
Yeah,
where
looking
Richard
forward to
will
that.
be crashing against various items of kitchenalia, and you can guess in which one that Dad used to warm up his beans.
That's right. And we've had lots of entries from last week's edition, actually, so I should be reading those out as well.
We have. Did someone serve us Tracy Island iced teas before this recording as well, do you think? It does feel that way. Anyway, returning slightly more to the real world.
I think we should.
Do you want some interview material?
Oh, yes. Tell us about that.
Oh, goodness me. Okay, well, this week we're talking to a very lovely chap, Joe Jameson. Now, Joe is a prolific voice actor who will be best known to you, Podsterons and Ander fans in general, for his work on our range of Thunderbirds audiobooks, where Joe plays both Alan and Gordon Tracy, as well as loads and loads of guest characters.
I bet.
So Joe is of the kind of 90s plus generation of Thunderbirds viewers, so different perspective again to previous ones. We talk about how Joe got to know Thunderbird stuff, what appealed to him as a kid, the journey through voice acting, and all that sort of stuff. This is part 1 of 2 with Joe Jameson. Here he is.
Hello, everyone. I am Joe Jameson. I am an actor and a voiceover artist, and you may know me as Alan and Gordon Tracy in the Thunderbird audios.
Well, what a professional audio introduction, Joe. It's almost like you do this for a job.
A few times.
Yes. Well, I'm very glad we finally be able to pin this down, because we've been trying for what feels like 6 months.
Ages. Yeah, it's been a bit back and forth, hasn't it? But we finally found a date.
But that's because you're so busy doing so many
and yourself
voicey things. Yeah. All right, fine. I'm too, but I'm not doing voice work. So
you're doing proper serious work.
None of this is serious work, as we've already covered in the pre-interview chat, Joe. We're not saving the world here. We're just, having fun, and hopefully others having fun along the way. What other audio stuff might our listeners have heard you from, knowingly or unknowingly?
I've done lots of stuff for Big Finish, which I think is how we met. So I've done loads of Doctor Who things for Big Finish. I've done hundreds of audiobooks. I think I'm on about 400 now, I think.
Wow.
It's a bit mad. And I've just started doing quite a lot of video game stuff, so I don't know. I'm not sure what people will definitely have heard me in, but
there's no guarantees.
My voice somewhere. Yeah.
I'm sure. I mean, any kind of like highlight things where you've been alongside exciting people other than Thunderbirds audios, of course.
Of course, yeah. Well, that goes without saying. My favourite Big Finish that I did was with Billy Piper, and I played I can't remember the exact intricacies of the story, but I was the male version of Rose.
Oh, nice.
It was. Quite intimidating.
Yeah.
But it was so lovely, and it was just me and Billy Piper for a day. Helen Goldman was directing, and it was the most fun, silly. It was one of those days where you're like, I can't believe that I'm getting paid to do this.
Yeah.
So I think that was a highlight. But I mean, Big Finish are just the best company to work for, apart from Gerry Anderson, obviously.
Nice save, Joe. Nice save.
It's this like amazing. They have this amazing ability to just bring together the best people, the nicest people, telling silly stories, great fun. There are so many. You spend most of the day laughing, and then occasionally you press record and do some work. I mean, it's just like it's great. So any Big Finish job is a big fat yes from me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that is how we were brought together. Nick Briggs suggested you for the Thunderbirds bits and pieces. So we'll cover kind of how we got into that later on. However, when we did have our first chat, you, I'm sure, said to me that you had at least watched Thunderbirds and maybe some other shows as a child.
Oh my God, yeah.
Okay. Well, you said that so enthusiastically and so emphatically. Tell me how you came across the world of Anderson.
I mean, when my agent called me and said that, I think initially I had to send a tape in, or I had to send a little recording in. I mean, I can't remember what I was doing, but I cancelled everything I was doing, and I was like, I want this job, because growing up, Thunderbird. I mean, Tracy Island was kind of like my Neverland. I think I just remember as a kid thinking, this island in the middle of the sea, where the coolest family in the world live, and the swimming pool opens up and a rocket comes out of it, and the palm trees collapse down to one side. Like as a kind of 7-year-old boy, I feel like it doesn't get much cooler than that. And I can't remember what I discovered in what order, but I remember as a kid loving Captain Scarlet. Stingray was one of my favorites. I for some reason I have such a vivid memory of this one particular episode of Stingray, which, you know, when you're a kid and you had the like VHSs that would get played so much that they would just kind of wear out and wear out and wear out. I must have had a Stingray one that and it had the episode where they shrink down in size and they end up in this fish tank in the middle of this banquet hall, and then I think there's a fire. Is there a big
Tom Thumb Tempest, is that? I think I'm not the go-to source, but I'm pretty sure that is. Right. But yes, the old shrinking story.
Yeah. But I remember I watched that episode to death. So it was a huge part of my childhood. So yeah, when the opportunity came up to potentially be in some way connected to it, I was like, I have to get it. Yeah.
Well, that's always lovely to hear, and it it showed. I'm sure when we spoke, you were kind of very enthusiastic about it, and there's lots of times you have these conversations where people are kind of faux enthusiastic, but you seemed genuinely so.
I remember I had a blue like worker's jacket that was like Thunderbird blue. And I think for our meeting, I think I wore it being like, right, this will, even if I don't sound like them, Jamie will be like, well, he kind of looks like a Thunderbird.
He's wearing that strange blue hat. Yes, very odd. To be clear,
coming out. What's he doing?
There was no hat and there were no strings. But no, it was a really nice chat. So when you were then watching these shows, what sort of year are we talking, Joe? Unless you're frightened to reveal your age, which is totally fair enough.
I was born in 88, so I guess
you were mid-90s. Yeah, okay. So perfect kind of resurgence time after that initial big Thunderbirds resurgence, but while stuff was still playing out on BBC Two, probably in the evenings, maybe on the weekends, all that sort of stuff. Okay, so you got the full sort of Supermarination in colour experience. Joe 90, did that cross onto your radar?
Joe 90, yeah, I do remember Joe 90, but I don't think I ever got into Joe 90.
Correct answer.
I think I was annoyed that it was another Joe. I was the only Joe in my childhood.
Joe. Who needs Joe 90 when you've got Joe Jameson? So that's totally fair. Yeah. So, okay, so mid-90s, by that time, the shows that you were talking about were they were 30 years old, give or take.
Yeah.
How did they feel to you as a 6, 7, 8-year-old in the mid-90s? Did they feel like they were 3 decades old?
I mean, I feel like as a kid, I don't remember thinking this seems old. And to be honest, even when we came to do the audios and I sort of rewatched a couple, even then, I mean, there are obviously aspects of them which have kind of dated a little bit.
Completely, yeah.
The essence of it is still still seems so current. And even though it's this, even though kind of animation has moved on so much and motion capture you've got now, and you'd think it would be the sort of style that would really kind of, I don't know, fade out and kind of be seen as a bit kind of, I don't know, but it just really hasn't. It's and the storytelling of them is so good. I think that's the other thing, the storytelling and the performances. I mean, all those iconic voices, and it's just magic. It's magic.
Yeah, it is a magic combination, and I think it's really hard to distill it into some sort of formula. But despite that, I'm still going to ask you to sort of do that. Because it's sort of, there's a naivety and an innocence in the medium, as in puppetry, contrasted with this incredibly kind of sophisticated look and feel in the way that it's delivered.
Yeah.
And then you've got something which is kind of bright and colourful and very kind of kid appealing, but then also has very serious voice acting. It's not performed like kids animation would be now, where everything is kind of heightened and silly. So it's these amazing contrasts.
Yeah,
and yet it works. I mean, what glues it together? Can you get any sense of what holds this strange thing in one place?
I think, like you say, it's really hard to distill it down to a kind of a simple answer, because I think I think, like you say, it is a combination of, like, when I came to try and work out the voices for Alan and Gordon, it's quite an intimidating thing to come to, because the performances of every character in Thunderbirds is so iconic and has become so iconic, and almost like the longer it goes on, the more iconic they become. And so, and the other thing is, when I was approaching the voices, I mean, I'm not an impressionist. I'm not John Coleshaw. And I kind of watch him. His ability to do that is kind of scarily good.
Yeah.
I feel like he can listen to someone and within like a few minutes he's got the exact kind of timbre and vocal quality. It's really incredible. And I mean, I don't really have that. I think I can create voices from scratch, and I can be kind of inspired by voices and try and kind of give a kind of flavor of something, but I'm not an impressionist. And so I think that was the biggest challenge, was trying to take what they did so brilliantly and kind of layer it with my own thing. I've gone off a tangent because your question was about what makes it so good, but I think it's the performances that really do it with that. I mean, it was so captivating as a kid, and even like, little lines stay with you forever. Even just like, yes, father. Like that line, those two words just became this iconic thing. And I don't know. It's so much. The music's so good, and it's incredible. It's an incredible thing.
Yeah, it is bizarre, isn't it? Because there was so much telly created around that time, and a lot of it has hung around because it, for whatever reason, was aspirational, inspirational, peculiar, or curious in a way. And this kind of seems to tick all the boxes.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of the context for what else you might have been watching in the mid-90s, what else was going on for kids like Joe?
I'm going to get on my ages model on. I mean, I guess I was probably watching The Simpsons, or maybe I was too young for The Simpsons when I was watching Thunderbirds.
It might have been. I feel like it was in that era with some BBC Two stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I came to The Simpsons a bit older, because I think I got the Thunderbirds. My dad watched Thunderbirds, so as a kind of young dad, I think he was excited in that way you are to show your kids the things that you liked, and hope that it won't be dated and it won't be. And so I think I remember watching with him as a kid, quite young. So I don't know what else it would have been. I mean, I guess really young, I was probably watching like Thomas the Tank, and then it was probably Thunderbirds, and then it was. So yeah, I don't know what it would have been necessarily competing with, but I do know that there was definitely that phase I don't know if it was Saturday mornings, but I always sort of remember that Saturday morning where, you know, mum and dad would stay in bed and you'd have the whole morning where you could just watch cartoons and TV, kids TV. And I do remember it was the VHS, the videos. It was the cases, and, you know, taking them out of their cases and watching them again. And so, yeah, I don't know what it would have been competing against, but I think Thunderbird, Stingray, Captain Scarlet there was a definite phase in my life. And I remember that year, you'll know what year it was, but the year that the Tracy Island was like sold out everywhere and everyone wanted to buy the Tracy Island. And I remember getting it for Christmas or a birthday or something. And it was just the coolest thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's early 90s. So you would have been...
Is it? So I was
young,
really young.
So maybe you were being indoctrinated via VHS before it was
maybe,
on BBC,
yeah.
and then it just carried on. So yeah, I mean, you were in a kind of like a second golden age, really, for the Thunderbirds and associated Anderson stuff. Okay, so we can park your Anderson experience.
Okay.
So, you know, little Joe is watching Thunderbirds and not being that enamored with Joe 90 and all that sort of stuff. How does your comic book origins story go then into getting into voice acting in particular? You know, but you don't have to make it up, by the way, where you say, I heard Shane Rimmer's incredible Scott Tracy, and I was like, I want to be doing that. You can't say that now. I've already said it.
No, damn it. That's what I was going to say. No, do you know what? I came to acting really late. Well, quite late. I wasn't a kid who wanted to be an actor since, you know, I was 5 or 6 and went to kind of kids stage school stuff. Like I never did any of that. And I was probably about 16 when I started acting at school, and I was like, oh, I quite like this. This is quite fun. And I got really into it. And then I thought, maybe I could audition for drama school when I was 18. And, you know, all my family and my teachers kind of very sensibly said to me, absolutely go for it. But like it, you know, it's really tough. Like it's a tough thing. So why don't you go for it, but also apply to uni? And, you know, if you get in, you get in, but, you know, realistically, you won't. And so then you can go to uni. You can always come back to it after uni. And I genuinely think that going into the auditions for drama school with that attitude helped me get in, because I didn't come to it with this like desperate need to like, oh God, I really need this. I need this. I kind of went along being like, well, I'll just do my thing and see what happens. And so I went to Bristol a bit and studied acting there. And then when I left drama school, I'm originally from Bath, and BBC Audiobooks used to be based in Bath. And so when I left, I wrote to them and I said, even though I was living in London, I said, I'm a local actor. I'd love to come and do some audiobooks. And I sent in a tape, you know, a sample, and I got a couple of them. And then it just sort of kind of carried on from there. And I worked as an actor for about 8 years. And then I guess about 2017, 2018, at which point I was doing loads of voice stuff, I sort of thought, you know what, I'm just going to stop the acting thing for a bit and just do voiceover work and see how it goes. And within about 2 months, I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. I love the people in the voiceover industry are the nicest people. It feels like a kind of separate bit of the acting industry, which doesn't take itself like quite so seriously. And I just really appreciate that. And so I only really do voice stuff now, and it's great. Like no week's the same. I'm always doing something a little bit different, playing different characters in different genres with different styles of things, and I love it. It's great.
That's a very lovely kind of almost smooth ride. You know, you get a lot of people who's like, oh, I almost gave up, and then this disaster happened. I got this terrible feedback.
Well, I've given the rosy version. You know, there are a few bumps along the way, but
okay. And
I loved working as an actor. I really did. And I did some really fun stuff and met some amazing people. But it's really tough. Like it's really, really tough. The kind of daily grind of you know, having a job and then the job ending and then not getting anything for ages, and then coming close to something and then not getting it, and then being offered something that will take you away for 6 months, and you think, well, I don't really want to go away for 6 months, and it just becomes like really. I'm in awe of people that do it. It's great, but I think I was like, I mean, I was very lucky that I had the voice stuff to kind of, you know, complement it, and I could kind of go, well, why don't I just push all my attention onto this and see what happens? And here we are.
Now you are. Amazing. Yeah. Okay. Well, I love that that's like become the thing that really speaks to you, for want of a better term, for voice work.
I think I get to play characters that I would never get to play on stage or screen.
Yeah.
Which is so cool. Like, that's so cool.
Exactly. There's an added freedom and creativity, right, that you can't get if you're there visually, but there physically.
Yeah.
Or Joe Jameson next week for part 2, won't surprise you at all because you just had part 1. Podsterons,
were you about to say, would you believe?
Yeah, I was going to say that, but just ignore that. Podsterons, if you would like to hear the Thunderbirds audiobooks and you have not done so yet, then you can go to ander.sn/bundles, that's andr.sn/bundles, and you can get the first 3 audiobooks all together for a great low price. And obviously there, enjoy Joe's fantastic performances as Alan, Gordon, and other guest characters. So more Joe Jameson next week. But looking back across all of our 250 pods that have come before, the amazing mixture of people who've worked on the original stuff, worked on new stuff, fans, actors, performers, writers, effects supervisors, journalists, science advisors, people who work at ESA. I mean, it's amazing. So
the thing that strikes me is that Gerry's legacy isn't some sort of fusty, dusty museum piece, is it?
No.
It's a living, breathing legacy that is still evolving, even today.
It is
incredible.
It is very much a living, breathing beast, which is fantastic. So there we go. That's the end of that one. What have you got for us now?
Well, Jamie, now, we didn't have time to do the Guess the Height of the Elephant earlier, but shall we have a little game of Panderson? I know it's one of Podsteron's favourites.
Absolutely. So, Podsterons, here we go. It's this week's Gerry Panderson.
Panderson, what did Gerry cook in his Panderson? Panderson, what did Gerry cook in his Panderson?
That song will never get old, even though we've heard it so many times before.
Well, exactly. So, Podsterons, of course you know, but for those who are just joining us today, I'm going to rattle some pans, and your job is to guess what would Gerry have cooked in these pans. Okay? Simple as that. Email your answers in to podcast@gerryanderson.com and I shall read out the winners next week. So, are you ready for this week's Panderson?
Born ready.
Here he comes. Oh, just switching on the gas and...
Ooh.
There you go. So, what do you think Gerry might have cooked in those pans? Let us know at podcast@gerryanderson.com and I'll read out the winners next week in another exciting edition of Panderson. Panderson, what did Gerry cook in his Panderson? Panderson, what did Gerry cook in his Panderson?
Well, there we go.
I can't believe we did that.
Well, I can. Believe us, Podsterons, there's a lot worse to come.
I mean, really, listen, let's bamboozle the entire world, shall we, Podsterons? If you are on Twitter, why not tweet your answer to the Panderson competition, simply putting your answer followed by the hashtag Panderson.
Yes.
And I shall retweet it.
That'll work perfectly.
All right? Let's try and get it trending.
Yeah, brilliant work. Brilliant work. And anyway. What a fantastic theme tune as well. Can you believe that Richard composed that entire thing and played it live at both ends of the Panderson feature?
Yes, that's the way I roll. Now, back to the real world. Over on Twitter, people I know have been tagging us. There. They've been tagging me, Richard and James. Him over there, I'm Jamie Anderson. Oh, and him waiting very patiently.
Oh,
Sorry,
yes.
Chris.
Sorry, Chris. We've been holding you up.
Yeah, at Chris Dalek. So, for example, Robert Monk tweeted, what I love most about the podcast, this is in response to our 250th podcast
exactly,
last week.
Is the Gerry Panderson section.
So he doesn't mention it, funnily enough.
That's funny.
But he does say what he loves most is the banter and interaction from our 3 wonderful hosts and the brilliant friends that I've made in the best group on Facebook.
I love that.
Paige says, happy 250th to the Gerry Anderson podcast. What do I love about the podcast? She says, simple, all of it. But are we thinking about this question all day? And then a little later she added, my bank account adds that it loves the podcast, but gets quite nervous during newsy news.
That is totally fair.
Apologies to your wallet, Peach. Becca says, huge congratulations to Jamie, Ben, Chris, Richard and team on the 250th Gerry Anderson podcast. Thank you for keeping us podders going with fab content, merch, fun, new Anderson worlds to explore and the best fan community. Here's to the next 250 pods and beyond. And then she adds a little later, if like me you're a fan of all things Gerry Anderson related, please do yourself a massive favour and listen to the FAB Gerry Anderson podcast and join the wonderful Podsterons community. Well worth your time, you won't regret it. And James said something similar. He said, you may want to check out the stunningly comprehensive and extraordinarily friendly Gerry Anderson podcast. 250 editions of all you need to bring the worlds of Gerry Anderson back into your life.
Hear, hear.
Now, there was also someone tweeted, I think, yes, they put a little screenshot of a message that they'd like me to read out, and it is this. Have I neglected to put their name? Oh dear, sorry. Okay.
That's very unlike you. I mean, that's literally never happened in the history of the podcast.
I can only apologise, but you'll know who you are. Dear hosts and Podsterons, says our listener, as a Japanese Anderson shows fan, I'm wondering about the reunion party, the 40th episode of Stingray. It's often described that it was made for screening to Japanese executives, but who were they and which company did they come from and when was it screened? If they were those involved in airing Stingray in Japan, then the company names are perhaps Fuji Television, the broadcast company, or Taiheiyo, which means Pacific Television Distributing Company. Does any document have any such names in it? Also, he says, regarding Stingray in Japan, this would be a fab fact for you. We know that Stingray is the first television series filmed entirely in colour in Britain, but it was the very first colour television programme aired on Fuji Television, and it was in the company's history books. And Stingray started on 7th of September 1964 in Japan, a month earlier than in Britain.
I didn't know that.
There. I enjoy your podcast every week when I can understand the language. Well, I'm sorry, says our listener, for the dear hosts at the beginning. It's just that I'm not sure which of you to put first.
Amazing.
Anyway, thank you always, and that's, from my point of view, an unknown tweeter. I do apologise again. But there we are. You know
a lovely note.
Thanks for getting in touch. Yes, exactly.
And thank you for listening, and thank you for writing to us.
Absolutely right. So Stingray actually appeared in Japan before Britain.
Which I didn't realise, which means it is the 60th anniversary of Stingray next year in both Japan and the UK. Now, I suspect that the 40th episode, the reunion party, was put together for Tohoku Shinsha, who are the distributors, TFC in Japan.
Yep.
But I don't know. But I know a man who might know.
Oh.
In fact, I know several people who might know, so we're going to find out and hopefully try to answer that next week, unless we're overwhelmed with Gerry Panderson responses, in which case we'll be run out of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you.
And don't forget, of course, that the Panderson quiz does have its own podcast that you can listen to and rate and review and subscribe to. Just like the Randomiser.
Oh, brilliant. Yes, yes, absolutely.
There you go. All for now, but do keep tweeting us. Hashtag us Gerry Anderson podcast. Don't forget to hashtag us Panderson with your entries to this week's Panderson competition, and I'll read out your tweets next time.
Oh dear. We've really, really gone on. So much so that I thought, well, it must be the end now. But I realised that we've still got Chris's randomiser, and you've been waiting there so patiently. So, Chris, I'm so sorry. Chris Dale, the randomister, he's so wonderful, and he does this every week.
He does.
Come rain or shine or power cuts or COVID, he's always doing it. So here he is with another random episode of a randomly chosen Gerry Anderson show or film, which he says things about. It's all chosen by the big red button on his randomizer. So, Chris, over to you.
Wow, big old ship, ain't it, Marina? Oh, hello everyone. Sorry, we've rendezvoused with the Star Cruiser carrying today's button presser, and we're just waiting for him to beam over. Oh, this might be him now.
I am Tamura, commander of the Ishimo and lord of the Ninth Order.
Oh, hello, Tamura. I am Chris, commander of one rather beat-up Eagle and lord of, well, the Randomiser, I guess.
I have heard much about you.
Oh, good?
Perhaps.
Yes, well, we'll leave that there, I think. Oh, and this is my co-pilot and cohort, Marina.
Ah, the kindred spirit. Able to read my thoughts as few can.
I see. Well, that might explain the rumours you've heard.
He's right, of course.
We'll discuss this later, Marina. So, Tamura, are you happy to press the button today?
Yes, it is my karma, my destiny.
Excellent, well done. So, anything you'd like to see come up today?
That is not my purpose. I agreed to help your cause because I think it is right, but it must be done with honor.
Oh, of course, and I'm sure this printout will bring us all much honor. Oh, and it has.
State your case.
Well, it's the very first episode of Four Feather Falls today.
The arrangements are made. I will return to my ship. Sayonara.
Well, bye then. Oh, what a nice chap. And it's thanks to him that we'll find out how it began. This is an oddity. After last week, we had the very first episode of Fireball XL5, and I commented that that was the very first episode of any of the Super Mario Nation era puppet shows. I think this was actually one of the ones I mentioned when I was going through the list of we haven't had this, we haven't had this, we haven't had that, and now the next week, here's how it began. Very first episode of Four Feather Falls. Very strange, but as happens with Randomiser, it is completely random. And yes, this is the very first episode of Four Feather Falls, so as you can imagine, it's interesting to look back at this because, and I think I've said this a lot recently with Four Feather Falls, we seem to be stuck in some very early episodes. The puppets don't quite look as good as they would later do, and this is full of unfortunate, very early versions of puppets that would later on look much nicer.
Some licorice for me, and some tobacco for Gramps.
We have little Jake in Marjone's store. Both of them look very strange compared to how they later would. They look like a sort of halfway between what they would later be and the sort of Torchy style characters. Little Jake here looks like a troll doll, and
now go straight home, Jake.
Marjone's in particular looks quite distressing. Very pointy face.
Worry about Pedro, ma'am.
But it is, as I understand it, this was shot
The sheriff looks after
almost immediately after the end of shooting the first series of Torchy. This was the very final production, AP Films production anyway, filmed at Islet Park. After they made this, they then moved off to Slough to make the rest of the series. And this is also unusual in the sense that I think I said this last week, and actually I probably shouldn't have done. I said that Planet 46 was the pilot episode of Fireball XL5, and that's not strictly true.
Get out of town, and don't you ever come back.
That's a clip they like to play on. Well, they played quite a bit when Nicholas Parsons passed away. That clip turned up on various news reports and such of his passing. But yes, I kept calling them pilots, and really, if it's a first episode where they know they're going to be making a full series, then it really is just a first episode. This is a true pilot because they went into this
Quite a while back,
only making the one episode in the hopes of then being able to make 38 more, depending on any broadcasters wanting to pick it up. And luckily for them, and indeed for us probably, Granada did. But when they made this was a genuine pilot. Just the one episode, no guarantees that there would be anything else. And
bet you'd sure like it.
I'm struggling to think of any other Anderson shows where that was the case. Obviously, things like Space Police, that was a genuine pilot, and the show that followed wasn't quite the same thing. Same as with The Investigator and The Day After Tomorrow. Tomorrow. I was going a bit hero there. They are pilots for shows that never went anywhere. This is a pilot for a show that was actually picked up. And I'm pretty sure the only other example of that in the Anderson world is Dick Spanner. I want to say Dick Spanner was made, the first episode was made ahead of the rest of the run.
Together, boy.
So, a lot of history here.
Had a fire burning.
And I've waffled all over key plot points, but really there isn't much of a plot to this one. A slightly derpy looking, very early version of Tex Tucker
Happy now.
is riding through the desert with his horse Rocky and his dog Dusty.
Father, Big Chief, Kalamakuya.
They found this little boy, Makuya,
3 moons over mountain.
who is one of those Four for the Falls characters that I never thought actually looked any good, even later on when the puppets looked quite respectable. He has the proportions of like a Lego figure, but also his fingers in this early version of the puppet look like they've been flattened. He's got very flat fingers.
Further, Makuya.
Actually, Tex doesn't look to have very healthy hands either.
Waterfall soon.
Waterfall. We'd better make it by sundown.
Anyway.
Can't go on much longer without water.
Yes, they're struggling in the desert, our foursome. And I think I've said this in later episodes. A lot of the Four for the Falls horses that aren't Rocky look quite derpy. Well, Rocky looks quite derpy this week. He's very wide-eyed. I look at this and think, they were putting everything into this in the hopes that someone would like it enough to pick it up for a series. So in that sense, I really can look past all of the crudity of this.
Waterfall.
As much as I'm commenting on it. Oh.
Where, son? I can't see it.
Sun hit water. All dried up.
Oh, yeah, that's the Four for the Falls with no water. Yes, there's backstory for this. Grandpa Twink is telling little Jake the story of how the town of Four for the Falls came to be.
Go on at sunup.
Which, yes, mostly involves Tex and Makuya, Rocky and Dusty.
He had told Makuya he'd be home in the morning. He knew they couldn't be found.
Oh dear, everyone's thoroughly lost.
And suddenly he woke up and shouted,
Kalamakuya!
Oh! Yes. And looking at this, on the knowledge that this followed immediately after the production of the first series of Torchy, it is very ambitious and hugely... there's so much atmosphere in this nighttime Four for the Falls stuff that I don't think Torchy ever attempted. I don't remember too many nighttime scenes in Torchy.
He find me.
And I think probably genuinely atmosphere in Torchy was sort of misplaced in what more of accidental horror was what they got with Torchy.
I want no reward, Chief.
But here's Big Chief Kalamakuya.
Drink of water and something to eat.
Returning his son to him, or thanks to Tex Tucker.
Water. But first, I bring son over mountain.
Oh, that's okay. Is that going to affect like the whole world if you do that? Okay. I've got to say, actually, as ropey as a lot of the Four for the Falls episodes look on DVD, this looks particularly bad. Again, where's our Four for the Falls Blu-rays? Oh, but that is a gorgeous shot. I don't know, this must be some form of stock footage, but I don't know where it comes from, of the mountain absolutely bone dry, and then we crossfade to... Water cascading down the falls. Indeed, those are the Four for the Falls of the title. Because prior to this episode, or this recap I should say, none of this was here. There was no water. Now there's lush vegetation. It's all thanks to Big Chief Kalamakuya.
Could have given me, Chief.
Oh.
Have more for you, Tex Tucker.
If you let me have a theme song.
From my headdress. Here is first feather.
Oh, this is a big moment, actually, the giving of the feathers.
I say, old chap, do be careful with that feather.
Yes, and the first time Rocky and Dusty are going to talk. I also love how the animals don't seem particularly fazed by the fact that they can suddenly communicate in human English.
Naturally, old boy. My ancestors came from England.
And this early version of Rocky has got a very large nose, actually. I'm glad that they went and revamped a lot of these puppets. And it wasn't an immediate thing. They didn't do it as soon as they went into the show. It was a gradual process. I suppose the more main the character, the more urgently they were treated as a case for being upgraded.
Dusty.
Because Dusty also looks quite skinny.
Take care of that feather, Tex. If you lose it, I lose my voice.
Well, we know from past experience, Tex will never, ever lose those feathers. You don't have to worry about that. Oh, there go the magic guns.
But I didn't touch my guns.
Oh.
Your
your guns now.
And we don't get too much of a backstory for Tex. He's just sort of roaming around the place in some very rough-looking clothes. Kalamakuya and Makuya have just beamed out.
They simply vanished.
Ooh.
But the water's still here, and the grass and the trees. This place is sure full of magic. In Four Feather
Oh, we're going into the song. Okay.
Four Feather Falls, there's always magic in the
And this is something that Tex has got a harmonica. Oh, that's sweet. The town of Four Feather Falls didn't exist before this great day when Tex got lost in the desert and met Big Chief Kalamakuya. You kind of think, oh, it must have been there for ages, but in fact, no, because there was no reason for it to be there, because there was no water until this great day. So it's not only that Tex is the sheriff of this town, he essentially is responsible for it existing in the first place, which I think is quite an interesting and understated element of the series. Also makes me wonder why the townsfolk often seem to be so glad to get rid of him, or they want to drive him out of town for the slightest mistake, considering that none of them would be there were it not for his heroic efforts. Four Feather Falls
is heaven on the
suddenly exists. Yes.
Is heaven on the range to me.
The town just exists now.
That's how it all began, Jake. Soon folks came to live here and made Tex their sheriff.
It's as simple as that. And you can see, actually, I think I've mentioned this before, but the town here looks very small.
Tex pedals behind you. Tex pedals behind you.
What are you talking about, Dusty?
Pedals behind you.
I kind of like this as well, but it makes Tex look a bit dopey. It's like, what? You were speaking English, but I still can't understand you.
Behind you.
Oh.
Get your hands up, Tex Tucker.
Oh, he said he'd be back.
No.
Yes, all of the buildings seem very close together in this early episode. And we're seeing buildings that we would see in later episodes, like the bank, like the saloon, that would have other characters associated with them. But in this episode, really, we just have like this central core of 8, all of which will recur throughout the series. But it was also nice that they developed the show after this and put in characters like Slim Jim and the bank manager guy whose name I've forgotten, and so on. So, that's Pedro having lost the first of his many hats.
Not, son. Guess not.
Oh, that's it. Oh, okay. Right. So, yeah, Tex shot Pedro's hat off and it landed on little Jake. And that is it. Directed by Gerry Anderson. Good stuff. Yeah, very obviously very early days for Four Feather Falls, because this is the first episode of Four Feather Falls. But it's nice watching this knowing that, you know, for all they knew, the people making this was going to be a one-off. So they put everything they could into it. And, you know, compared to the later episodes, it's not especially standout. But comparing it to Torchy, it's a huge step up. So this is something of a really crucial stepping stone from one world to another in terms of the Anderson story. I suppose it's one of those little moments in history where if they hadn't done this and it hadn't been picked up by Granada, who knows what may or may not have happened in later years. So on the whole, a solid first episode of Four Feather Falls. Not great, not perfect, but nothing terrible either. So yeah, well done, guys.
Heaven on the Range.
Yes,
Four Feather Falls. And not only did we last week have, I think, the first ever pilot episode, was it?
That's right.
Of a supermarination show.
That's right, it was, yes.
And now it's another one.
Yes,
but also,
there you go.
although not supermarination, but it is another pilot episode. I mean, it sort of technically is, but before it was called supermarination. Anyway,
Sure.
Thank you, Chris. How lovely. Mm-hmm. It's just so nice to hear a bit of real, proper old school stuff, isn't it?
It really is. Absolutely right. It just reminds us how long this stuff has been around.
Well, 64 years ago in the case of Four Feather Falls. Goodness me.
Incredible. Yeah, amazing.
Anyway, that's it. We've
that's
gone
it.
on and on and on and on, and
I
Paris
think so.
on. So, do you think we should stop talking?
I mean, I've stopped already. I don't know if you've noticed.
I hadn't, but now I realise I will also stop too. So, Podsterons, I'm stopping talking right now. Please do send in your Panderson things. And any other emails to podcast@gerryanderson.com. Leave us a rating. And now we'll leave you to your clammy ears. Allow them to dry. And, we look forward to your Panderson answers for next week.
Am I allowed to talk it?
Yes.
Okay. Bye.
Goodbye.
Stage 1 complete.
Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
Panderson, what did Gerry cook in his Panderson? Panderson, what did Gerry cook in his Panderson? I mean, that's a hell of an earworm, isn't it?
It really is. I think that they will be singing it for months after this, as will we. I feel like if I ever see you in town, if we're like in London and we bump into each other, we'll both go, Panderson, what did Gerry cook in his Panderson?
I tell you what, I'm looking forward to the next live podcast.
Oh, me too. Do you think we should do it?
Should I bring some pans?
Well, I mean, I'll bring an actual Panderson. How's that? And then we can tell the famous soup story.
What?
Yes.
Is there a famous soup story?
I don't know if we've spoken about it, but yes, there is a famous soup story.
Well, don't tell it now.
No, I won't. I'll save it for the live podcast when we next do that, whatever it might be.
Does it involve croutons?
No. Right. It involves an ingredient that should not be in soup.
Let's leave that there, shall we?
Absolutely. Anyway.
Okay, look forward to that.
Yeah, that's.
Right.
I guess we should probably go now.
I think we should, yeah. See you next week.
All right.
Bye. Panderson. What did Gerry cook in his Panderson? Panderson. What did Gerry cook in his Panderson? Yeah.
You have been listening to the Gerry Anderson Podcast. Wasn't it fun?
You have been listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.